Welcome, history enthusiasts. Thank you for being here. I searched through old books to discover fascinating facts from the past for you. Subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up. I'll be immensely grateful for your support. And now, let's dive into the history of...
Imagine a silence falling over an entire nation. Not the silence of peace, but the chilling silence of divine abandonment. Imagine churches locked, bells stilled, the rituals that mark life from birth to death suddenly forbidden. This wasn't a fictional apocalypse, this was the reality for an entire European kingdom in the late 13th century. We delve today into a moment almost erased from popular memory, a time when the ultimate spiritual weapon, excommunication, was wielded not just against a king, but against every man, woman, and child under his rule. The year is 1282. The place: the sun-drenched, fiercely independent island of Sicily. The air in Sicily still crackled with the aftermath of the bloody uprising known as the Sicilian Vespers. The hated French Angevin dynasty, rulers imposed by papal blessing, had been violently overthrown. The Sicilian people, in a desperate bid for protection and legitimacy, had offered their crown to King Peter III of Aragon. A calculated gamble, a defiance against the established powers of Europe. But one man saw this not as liberation, but as a direct affront. Pope Martin IV. A Frenchman himself, deeply entrenched in the politics of the time, and a staunch ally of the deposed French Angevins. For him, the Sicilian Vespers and Peter's coronation weren't just political shifts, they were acts of rebellion against the divinely sanctioned order, an order he felt personally responsible for upholding. His response was swift, absolute, and terrifying in its scope. In November 1282, Pope Martin IV unleashed the spiritual equivalent of a nuclear bomb. He declared King Peter III of Aragon excommunicated, cast out from the body of the Church, denied its sacraments, damned in the eyes of God. But he didn't stop there. In an almost unprecedented move, he extended this curse to the entire Kingdom of Sicily. Every soul on the island. Think about what this meant. Suddenly, churches were ordered closed. Priests were forbidden from celebrating Mass, the central act of Catholic worship. Confession, the path to forgiveness for sins, was barred. Marriages could not be consecrated by the Church, leaving couples in a state of perceived sin. Baptisms, essential for washing away original sin, were thrown into doubt. Perhaps most horrifyingly for the deeply religious populace, the dead could not receive Christian burial rites. Their souls, it was believed, were left in eternal peril, unable to find peace. This wasn't just a spiritual crisis, it was a societal breakdown. The Church was woven into the very fabric of medieval life. Its rituals marked time, its blessings offered solace, its authority underpinned social order. To be cut off was to be adrift, spiritually and socially isolated. The Pope doubled down on his earthly vengeance. He declared Peter III deposed not just spiritually, but temporally. He proclaimed a full-blown crusade not against distant infidels, but against fellow Christians in Aragon. He dangled the Aragonese crown before the ambitious French prince, Charles of Valois, brother of the French King Philip III. The Vicar of Christ was calling for war against those who defied his political will. In 1285, the threat materialized. King Philip III of France, urged on by the Pope and the promise of a crown for his brother, led a massive army across the Pyrenees into Aragon. The so-called Aragonese Crusade was underway. It seemed Peter III and his contested kingdoms were doomed, caught between the spiritual condemnation of the Pope and the military might of France. But history rarely follows the expected path. The French invasion proved disastrous. Disease ravaged their army, logistical nightmares mounted, and the Aragonese forces, fighting for their homeland, resisted fiercely. King Philip III himself died during the humiliating retreat. The crusade, blessed by the Pope, had failed spectacularly. Meanwhile, in Sicily, something remarkable was happening. Faced with total spiritual lockdown, the Sicilians did not simply collapse in fear or abandon their new king. An extraordinary resilience emerged, fueled by a potent mix of faith and defiance. Many local Sicilian priests, caught between papal decree and the needs of their flock, made a dangerous choice. They ignored the interdict. Quietly, often secretly, they continued to administer sacraments. They celebrated Mass behind closed doors, offered comfort to the dying, and blessed unions. They risked their own souls, their own positions, to stand with their people. Crucially, the Sicilians themselves performed a fascinating act of theological interpretation. They did not see themselves as rejected by God. They saw the Pope's actions for what they largely were: raw politics. They believed Pope Martin IV was acting not as the spiritual shepherd of Christendom, but as a French partisan, an ally of their overthrown oppressors. They remained devoutly Catholic, praying in their homes, maintaining their faith, but refusing to accept that their political choices had damned them eternally. They saw themselves as true Christians betrayed by a politically motivated pontiff. This strange, suspended state, the kingdom officially damned yet stubbornly faithful, persisted for years. Pope Martin IV died, but his successors maintained the hard line. The war sputtered on and off. Sicily remained under the papal curse. Generations were born and lived under the shadow of excommunication. Imagine children growing up never having seen the inside of an open church, never having received communion publicly, hearing whispers of the papal ban that hung over their island like a shroud. Yet, they endured. Their resistance wasn't just military, it was spiritual. A quiet, persistent refusal to equate the political machinations of the papacy with the will of God. It wasn't until 1302, a full 2 decades after the initial excommunication, that a resolution finally came. The Peace of Caltabellotta brought a fragile end to the long war. As part of the complex treaty, the papal ban on Sicily was finally, formally lifted. The bells could ring again, the church doors could swing open, the sacraments could be freely administered. The Great Excommunication of Sicily serves as a stark reminder of a time when the lines between spiritual authority and earthly power were dangerously blurred. It reveals the devastating consequences when faith is weaponized for political gain. But it also illuminates the incredible resilience of ordinary people, their ability to hold on to their faith even when condemned by its highest authority, and their courage to distinguish between the dictates of God and the ambitions of men. Their forgotten story is a testament to the enduring power of belief, even in the face of damnation itself.